What I want to do today is take a look at W4 Games. W4 Games, it's basically a service where you can host your backend server. There is scalability options with it. There are matchmaking options. You can do lobbies and that sort of thing. There's logs. Apparently they support clusters. This is my first look at this. I have no experience with W4. I have experience with GameLift and Unity hosting services, which this is I think the goal is to have this very similar to that, to build that all-inclusive kind of one-stop shop where you can host your Godot video game servers and that infrastructure and be able to scale up as needed. What I want to do is try to take this template that we got to a milestone this past couple of days, and we've got a base of lag compensation through NetFox working. So I just created a new branch off of this to see if we can get W4 installed and maybe try to run a backend server with it or whatever. So and just big disclaimer here, this is in beta. So whatever you see here is very likely to change over time. There are very likely to be bugs, gaps in the documentation, missing functionality, broken functionality. Things can be changed often. So this is a big disclaimer here that this is a beta look at a product that is not totally ready for the public by request invite kind of setup here where, not everybody's going to be able to access this. So what we have so far is a basic dashboard. I think when you sign up, they give you access to a workspace. So you request a workspace. So I've created a workspace, and this is what this one workspace is. So they do offer user management, and that's just your internal users for your system. And it looks like they have some database support. I'm not quite sure to what level they support databases. Backup, I'm assuming, is a backup and a file system. So yeah, I'm just going to look through this a little bit and see if I can maybe install the project and see if we can get it to hook in. So I'm going to come into my dashboard, and here's the GD script SDK. I think this is what I want. So I'm going to just try to kick off that download. Yeah, I think it's going to be this W4 GD script. Let's just double check. Latest GD script link. Oh, it just went ahead and downloaded it. Yeah, it's the same one. So that's cool. It looks like this. It's just the W4G folder, and it's got a add-ons folder, and I think that's in case you don't have an add-ons folder. They're just telling you it needs to go in the add-ins folder. I'm not sure what this is. I guess I can try to open it and see. Okay, so that just gives us the version we're in, and that's fine. So let's drag this folder over to our add-ons folder. Let me just double check that I've got everything committed. So it's good practice to, start with a fresh commit. So I created a new branch. We've got a fresh commit. So I'm going to select the add-ons folder, and let's just drag over this into there and see if it works. And right off the bat, we've got a little bit of errors there. That's sometimes typical. All right. So, okay. So it wants us to enable it. So I've seen that with some add-ons now. I love that feature, how you can toggle an add-on. I don't know if other engines do that in such an elegant way, but I really like how we can do that. So I think if we go to project settings, plugins, and you just click that enable button, the first time you open the project, blah, 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 is known as a Godot issue. Restarting the editor should fix it. I make bad games. Guys, if you want a shirt, pick them up. But you can make bad games like me. I didn't see any errors. I think we're good. I think we've got W4 installed. I have an idea of how this works because I've had experience with GameLift and other things. And what you usually have to do is you download the SDK, which we just did, you get it installed in your project, and then you have to call some connection code so that when your game runs, it knows that it's running in W4. It talks to the agent that's running on the servers that W4 owns, and it does a handshake, authenticates that you're allowed to do this, and you'll be able to sync into the hooks, lifecycle hooks, like, okay, your game is ready, and you get all those notifications for the different server statuses, and you can probably get access to logs and the printouts from that as well. So we need to set the URL and key in our W4 doc. Navigate to W4 screen to the left. You will see your workspace settings. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Do you guys even notice that? Let's see. Oh, look at that. Okay, so there is a new tab. Neat. All right, it says your admin credentials to upload game servers, builds, and run database scripts. Log in with your admin credentials to upload game server builds and run database scripts. Okay, well, we don't have a database script, but we can probably try to log in. But let's go back to the instructions. Okay, so allows us to manage our API keys and servers. I may have to go off stream here if I have to show that. Different profiles allow you to set different settings for live or production servers and test development servers. Okay. For now, you want to edit the default profile and add the URL and API key. Note that these settings are locked by default and you can only edit them after unlocking. So let's unlock the default settings and then we have to enter in our URL. So default, unlock, URL. Do I have to log in? Did it actually say to log in? It didn't say to log in. So, okay, so here's my URL and here's my API. So I'm not going to show those, but what's my URL? Okay, so it's just this. And then the key, I need to stick in the key. So all I did was, here's my key. It's very long and it is underneath this API, anonymous API. So this first one. And so I'm going to get out of that. And then we're going to have two tabs open. I like having two tabs. So I did that and I copy pasted it and then I hit the lock button maybe. Let's lock it. Okay, so we're locked. And so now that we have that, let's see about our API. You generally want to use anonymous API key. It's intended to have the least privileges. That's a good thing. Okay, the intention is for users to use it as often to authenticate. Okay, so when I said earlier that the keys are going to be about that you're going to want to remove that from your client builds, I think that may have been an incorrect statement if this is for like authenticating your users. So I think that you would probably leave that in. And this is a little too early and maybe I shouldn't talk about such things until I know for sure. Sorry, but it looks like the service API key will be used for administrative tasks. And I'm going to go ahead and guess that this will be in the server build. And then the anonymous API key will be shipped with your client builds. Because this is stated to say that it's going to give whatever the least amount of privileges, which makes sense for a client build. And also it does say here that users are going to use it to be authenticated and that sort of thing. Yeah, and they're going to be granted. So you authenticate your client probably through W4 to make connections to it, to the cloud. And then they'll probably return a token, maybe a temporary one that allows you to access different things to be able to talk from the client to the backend. Again, we're just getting into it. I'm not even sure what the capabilities that we're going to look into today, other than maybe just hosting a server. And then we can dive in at later, videos and streams as needed. Yeah, so we're going to make sure that we handle our service API key like an admin password. And that's a really good advice. I hope we can regenerate these. It doesn't look like they're going to let us just randomly regenerate them. Because sometimes like if a key gets compromised somehow or is being abused, you can regenerate a key, reship it, and kind of head off any kind of problems that may arise from that. So let's get back into the docs and let's hit next. And so this is the player authentication section, and it looks like they're still fleshing out this part. I guess there might be different spots of the documentation. They're still trying to like work it, so the dust is still settling on that. That's fine, but I don't really care about doing that. I mean, we may have to authenticate. We may have to do that. I just want to do a dedicated server. You can easily manage fleets of game servers across multiple regions worldwide. Scale your servers in response to player demand. I mean, that's what you want to see. If you've got funding and you're trying to figure out where to go, if you don't want to use AWS and you want some place that's like Godot specific, this could really turn out to be a great solution. Okay, so they're using a orchestration platform called Agnes. I have not, or Agnes, is it Agnes? So it's a custom cluster management solution with a Kubernetes. Yeah, it looks like you can do matchmaking and things. It literally says matchmaker. So it looks like a game focused project. This is amazing. This is like a Kubernetes wrapper specific for like video games, and it has APIs for like matchmaking and other capabilities in scaling and whatnot. So agones, it looks like it's made for matches or sessions, short period of time, minutes to hours. Okay, so maybe not necessarily like an open world, persistent type MMO or whatever if you're into something like that, but maybe dungeons and things like or arena kind of battle. So that's good to know. So if you're looking for that kind of thing, so a game server is just an instance of your Godot game. We got a Linux export. Glad to see that they're using that. I can't imagine they're using any other technology. And configured to act as a dedicated server, match, or session. So this is very prevalent in the style of hosting providers that I've seen, like GameLift and Unity hosting providers, and like one or two other that I've looked at. They're all going to treat your backend game instance like one instance running of the game will be configured to be a dedicated server to host a single match or session. Like you're not going to have that your backend server is going to handle multiple matches. They don't really do that. So you're going to configure your game, or at least you're going to provide a build that, like, your game may have a larger infrastructure, but if you just have like a match based game, like they're kind of alluding to here, then yeah, your backend will be that. And or if it ends up being like a bigger style game, like an MMO, and you don't really want to use this for that, but you might want to use this for your arena as part of your MMO or something like that. Or if you have a card game and you want to like just build off that, or shave off that part of your game code to run and be configured as a dedicated server, and trim that code down to just whatever you need to support your backend functionalities, and that's what will get deployed, and it'll be like one match per instance of your game's backend. So that's really common, and I'm not surprised to see that. And of course, Fleet is going to be a collection of these. This is also industry standard, I would say. And you can have a minimum and maximum. So everybody's probably going to start out with one. And it looks like they'll give you the ability to set a minimum and maximum, and maybe a an extra set of games to keep as a buffer to ready to go. And that's exactly what I was saying too. So if you all of a sudden hit a demand, or if it's like peak hours in the day and like everybody's getting off work and they're playing your game, and you want to be ready to handle that immediate demand, so spin up a couple or whatever many buffer servers that you think you'll need. And so that initial load, that initial spike, you will be ready to handle that. And then that'll also give the backend or the hosting W4 software a chance to spin up and scale up additional resources. So that's kind of like what that's saying. I might be going a little too in depth here, but I just wanted to talk to it a little bit. And then of course they have the availability of scaling around different regions of the world, and I'm not really going to get into that now. Today, I'm thinking that we'll create like a fleet with one server. I think I'm guessing that that's how this is going to work, because it's pretty standard. And that will give us an IP address, and I'm just going to manually hard code that into my game client. I'm guessing that I'm going to be able to do that. But in practice, what you would do is you would set up a matchmaker, and I believe they do have matchmaker support, which we'll look at in another video or another session. And the matchmaker is going to return to you, to your clients, hey, you have a match ready. Here's the IP where you need to connect your client. This isn't really best practice. I just want to do like a quick test end to end really quick, just to get through the process to see what that's like. The practice of hard coding your IPs for your game, unless you're just doing some testing or whatever, is probably okay. But eventually you want to switch to using a matchmaker. So dedicated server support is disabled by default, so your project doesn't use resources. Okay, so to enable that, I'm guessing this is so when you want to do a dedicated server build, I think that's what that means. I'm not really sure what they mean by that. This is exactly for, they've tailored this just like a match-based game. So this is very tailored to matchmaking. As you can see, once your match is finished, you need to tell agones, is that what it was? That it's ready to shut down the game server instance so that you don't just have this abandoned zombie instance with your game server running, collecting more fees for you. So you send it, this shutdown, and it'll probably just spin down at least the process of your game server, maybe not the game server like running like container for the game, but the actual specific process that your game, the backend is running, that Linux process to execute your game. They probably just shut that down and then reuse that server's instance. We need to be able to detect that a game is running in your W4 cloud. That's exactly what I've been saying, to do those initial handshakes. So in our main scene, so in our example, I think the main menu is my main scene. I think this is our main scene. And for your backend builds, this may not be the perfect way to do this, but I think for what we're trying to do, this is going to work fine. What I mean by that is, like, this is a menu scene, right? That doesn't really make sense in a dedicated server build that's headless. It's not going to have any UI, so it's kind of silly to have this. So maybe what I would recommend off the top of my head is don't use a main menu for, if you're building your video game where you have your client and server on the same project, kind of like what I've been doing. Maybe don't have a main menu scene as the first scene. Have like a startup scene, and that will determine, you'll do a check that's like, is this a dedicated server build? And then if it is, then automatically go to the main menu scene and then show the clients the menu. But if it's a server build, you'll detect it like this, and you'll say, hey, I don't need to go to the main menu scene. I can just start running all the networking stuff. Like I can call network host game or whatever to act as a backend server. And then you won't have to worry about, changing the main menus or hiding any of the menus or that kind of thing. So you'll go right from like a startup scene right into the host game. I have done that for one of my past examples I had a few months back. So if you're interested, check out those older 3D games I have. So this code, instead of doing a dedicated server, I guess they want you to do is server instead. Like if you built your game to run locally on your computer as like a standalone dedicated machine, you may have to have, is it dedicated server or W4, whatever that API was. A setup game server just runs down here, and they want you to connect a signal for on match ready. All the players have connected when you have a player connect. So it looks like I'm going to configure like how many players can join. So they're going to track that and get the lobby properties. It may force me to create a lobby. Unity does that. Unity's game hosting services did require me to create a lobby when using it. They don't care if you're just using a like one person lobby or whatever, match or game or that kind of thing. But they needed you to have that lobby because that's the way that this is working. They're not trying to host your, open world MMO server. You would have to, put that somewhere else. So it looks like we may have to create a lobby for this to work, and that's okay. Once you have a lobby for your match, it'll issue you an IP import of the game server to connect to. And it looks like it gives you a secret, and that player will have permission to connect to it. So that's pretty cool. They handle that for you, and that'll help with security. If the lobby isn't a WR, maybe they're using WebRTC for their lobby communication. WebSockets would work too if you were doing it on your own. And I've got a video on that too, but I guess maybe they're using that WebRTC. I think it's pretty fast technology. But it's, I think that's like if you're using a browser-based game, like if your game isn't, so I think they do support web builds, which means they're probably going to host the HTML build of your game, right? So if you're making a game to host and a web page, I think you would probably go under this web build section and do like a new web build or whatever, you would still have a game server that your web build connects to. And in that case, they would use WebRTC. That looks like they're using that instead of WebSockets, but I'm just guessing now. So it looks like I'll have to add this call. And then, well, first I'll have to configure all this stuff. Then I'm going to have to add this line of code here and call a on match ready. How are they getting? So they just set whatever port. I guess they don't care. Maybe they, I don't know. I don't know how they're doing that. Okay. So maybe they don't care. The process is running on whatever port. And then you have to mark it as ready. And then I'm assuming when you tell the agones or W4, I'm just going to say W4. When you tell W4 that the server's ready, I think that's saying players can connect. So at that point, mark the server is ready so you can allocate it to a match. Yeah, so this is just going to say this, the whatever, this is starting your game server so that it can be connected to from peers and clients. Then you're saying, yeah, I got all my setup done. We're ready. Let's do it. And then I don't think this happened yet. This comment is once all players have connected. So we don't have any players connected yet. So there's another step that we'll have to do, but they just put this callback here because I guess it's related to actually start the game once you have all the players. And on match ready will be called based on this connection up here that we made, and it will start the match. And there's probably a signal on match start that will allow you to change the scene of the player from the lobby scene into the game match scene. So let's go down here and see what we need to do. So this looks like client mode of your game to connect. You'll need to update the client mode of your game. After creating a lobby, you need to wait for the ticket to be issued. Okay, blah, blah, blah. We already read through that. So wait, is this, let's see what this is doing. So it looks like it's grabbing, it's getting your list. It's getting all the available games. It's getting the cluster. And again, it'll just be like one cluster and there's your lobby. It looks like it just picks whatever lobby that it decides based on your matchmaking protocols. And then you just wire up this signal. And then once you get a ticket, so creating a lobby, who's creating this? Is this just like if you create a lobby for other players to join? So this is client side. So this is saying, this is allowing you to create a lobby or get a lobby, I think, right? So it says getting a list of the clusters. So this is like all the servers and then, the clusters of servers. And then within there, it says create a lobby. Well, so your client is going to call, so this is client side, right? So your client is going to call back here and say, create a lobby. Now that we have the lobby, we need to wait for the ticket to say, here's your lobby. And where is it? On receive ticket. Here, let's see. And then we initialize our client and then we can connect. Okay, so, all right. So this is like when we connect, and then once all the players have joined, where's the seal lobby callback getting established? I don't know where this seal lobby is getting called. So something calls to seal lobby when enough players have joined. This function can be triggered by the lobby creator to seal the lobby and trigger the server ticket to be created. So this is when this is like when your match is ready to start. And I saw the word seal lobby somewhere else. I understand like 90% of this. This is a little, it's saying that your client can trigger this. So you're going to be connected. And then once enough players are joined, aren't we going to get another notification that's like, hey, all players have joined? Like, wasn't that up here? So all players have connected and start match. This is just like a placeholder or like changing to the main scene. You can just put that there. That's all that's doing. I guess we're just going to have to play around with it and see how that works. I think it'll make more sense once I actually code it in there. It's like one of those things. All right, let's go to the next one and see what we have to do. I don't want to do too much just yet. So let's see here what they want us to do. See if it's anything crazy. It doesn't look bad at all. So this is like, we're going to get our dedicated server ready for W4 Linux export. Okay, yep. This is, if you've seen any of my videos, you've seen me do this dedicated server tab, export mode as dedicated server. Absolutely. We don't need to really do any of this. We can just strip all the visuals for now. That's a little out of scope for this. So I'm just going to skip over that. And then there are 2 ways to upload your server build from the Godot UI using the UI plugin. That is awesome. Okay, so you can actually log into this and just stay in Godot and upload it there. I'm assuming I'm gonna have to log in the same credentials. Yeah, awesome. That's really cool. Maybe we'll just do that, and then it's got a place to run database scripts. So that's a little out of scope. So select the export preset, build name, upload build, export project, new build. Okay, and then what do? We create our fleet, give it a name, and this is just like the basic configuration that every game has. And it looks like they're either going to tell you port or you can give port. They have a slightly different set of instructions. Maybe this will shine a little bit more light on that lobby thing. Only the lobby creator. Okay, that makes more sense. A player creates a lobby. So I want to play a match, and they don't have to know they're creating a match. Does that make sense? Like, I think the way that this works is, it's not like you explicitly have to be like, I need to create a match or anything. You can just say, I want to join a game, and your game client behind the scenes will say, we'll do the checks. Is there an existing lobby that I can join? And if there is, with whatever lobby criteria, whatever matchmaking criteria, is it, what game type, map, and then you're going to be matched against some players in a lobby. And if there isn't a lobby, then behind the scenes, you create a lobby for them. And then they don't necessarily need to know and be aware of who's creating a lobby or not. However, it does look like the person that does kick it off is the one that has to mark it as sealed, which is a bit odd to me. I guess I'm expecting the server to say, oh, the lobby is now full and we can start the match. And based on this is saying like the creator of the lobby is the only one that can do it. I mean, maybe there's a workaround for that. It just, to me, it just seems a little odd that if that's the only way that you can set a lobby as sealed, then I don't know. We'll have to go through it once and see, but that just feels a little weird. Oh yeah, and here's your find lobbies, and there's the properties and constraints. You can say, like here, yeah, here's your rank. You can match them between a rank, and they're just providing some example data. So let's do this. Configure dedicated server to, configure to allow dedicated server support. Let's go back to our Godot project. Got to click advanced settings, game server, and we'll just select enabled. The default port is 4343. That's fine. Auto shutdown match on failure. That's fine. We can leave that. Minimum players 1. Yeah, that sounds about right. And player join timeout. So you got about 30 seconds, I guess, to establish that initial handshake. Health check interval. So it's going to keep checking on your server to make sure it's alive. And you might be able to do some additional checks on a lifecycle callback with that. Analytics and the key. Okay, so we got that part. I think that was it. I just went through these really quick, and let's get let's try to see if we can run our game in a server mode. So I think I'm just going to leverage this main menu for now, because I don't really want to deal with creating a startup scene. We will eventually. And for this demo, I'm going to assume that it's probably not going to work locally in host mode. Let's just get this backend to run just for the W4. So If I can, let me just copy this. So if we're running a server, I'm just trying to look at this. This defers to the game scene. So that's one big problem is right now when I'm gonna have to create an in-between scene so we don't go to the game scene because the game, which is gonna be a problem, right? Because I think we're gonna have to create a different script, but let me just walk through it a little bit. Okay, so let me, for now, let's just to get my head around this, let's just do this. And then it wants us to call this stuff. I'm going to copy and paste just to have a idea of what it will look like. So I don't think I want to do any of this. I think let's get in my network manager and what did they call it? Set up game server. And I think the best way to do this would to have like a whole other node that implements just that is like a wrapper around this library calls. And I think that would probably be the best way to do it. But for now, I think I'm just going to roll with their stuff to try to get this done in a timely manner. So let's just do this. And we're going to call it like that. And then I'm going to take all this and let's create that function at the top here. And then what was that code? I think it makes sense to put it over here because I believe we connect. Yeah, we actually create a peer, which is what I'm doing with this. So I can copy what I'm doing already. And then this puts us in, yeah, we're in the tree. Create server peer. What is that going to look like? I think that's my network, eNet network. So it's going to create our server peer, which is exactly what they're doing here. So I'm going to copy these lines of code here. And yeah, you can see I'm creating an eNet network scene. So I've kind of abstracted it away a little bit. And oh, what's this max peers? Yeah, max peers. Okay. So they care about that. I guess we can care about that for now. I think it'll look something more like that. And we'll just use default 4. So I'll just do it that way. So default 4, whatever. Okay. So we've got that and we've created a server. We haven't created an on match ready function, but we also need to mark the server as ready. Did I end up doing that? So in our setup game server, okay, so we marked the server is ready. And let's go ahead and create this on match ready just to see what it would look like. I'm not sure if I'm going to still use that. Here's the connection for that. I'm sorry, the callback for that signal. And then start match is obviously not what we're going to use. So I think what's happening, which is where we need to change, is this call along with the game scene. The game scene is going to be the main scene, right, for where we start the game. And this changes to it. And I'm just quickly getting through this just to see. Let's just stick game server up there for now. I think hopefully this will work. So right now what we've got set up is we've got a signal that says when the match is ready, W4 is going to tell our server, we've connected it right here. It's going to tell us the match is ready, and it comes down here and it gets all the players. You could do something with the players. I guess you can change. Yeah, I can't really access it right here. I'm not sure what get players is doing, but you can get them and do something. I'm guessing, just like you could, store some lobby properties as well. This is just kind of telling you can do stuff, but ultimately when the match is ready, we don't really need this stuff. I don't see a need for it right now, and that's fine. Most of these engines will do that, or most of these services will give you stuff so that you can do customization as needed. But for now, I don't really need that. We just need to start the game scene. So when we switch to the game scene, I think there is a problem because the game scene needs to be running on the server. and then the players need to be spawned into it. So whatever we do, we need to make sure that order of operations are good. And then we need to make sure we call shutdown. Isn't there like a global on quit? Yeah, here. When we quit the game, this is like tell W4. W4. What was the note that they said? Tell W4 to shut down server. Okay. I think game server. Okay. So we've got that there when we quit the game. It's fine. And I don't know if this order of operations are going to be correct. We may have to change to the game scene earlier. I need to think about it a little bit more. So we've got some of our server set up, and now we need to connect to the server. So when we're running the server and we click join game, it's going to call join game and doesn't connect to the server right away. It waits for so let's create a lobby. Let's do that instead. So I'm just going to show a loading screen and we can create a lobby. We're not going to do that. We're going to move that. So we're going to create lobby. That's going to say, let's get our cluster list from W4. Dedicated server. Okay. I don't know what front means. Maybe it just means like the first available. We'll print out an error if we got an error. And we're gonna have a lobby variable that we need to track apparently. So I'm just gonna put it right here so I have a working immediate snapshot of what I'm working on. And our lobby's created here, and we need to create this on receive server ticket. So let's just copy this for now. Just trying to get it finished once, an end-to-end test, so that we can learn from that. So when we get a ticket from the server, I'm going to add print statements in here because we need to know when all this is happening. I think that's really important to know. Let's just print that out too. And join game, we've got a print statement. And let's also, I want to print out something else at the end here. I think that'll be important. Lobby. And then this will get hit. And it looks like we just start the client, pass in whatever our identity is and the secret that I guess comes back from this server ticket, which is cool. And then we're going to run our client setup again, which I'm using. Let's use our code. And then you'll notice that we have to pass in a different IP import. So I think what we can do is right here. Let's look at that again. So I just used the 2 up here, but I think we need to say server IP equals, and then we'll just say, by default this, and then server port, and then we'll say equal to this. So that way, if we don't pass them in, then it'll be fine. But if we do pass them in, then it'll overwrite it. So let's just do that. And let's come back here, and then we'll pass in the two parameters, which is IP import from our server ticket, which we got back. And at that point, it will be connected, or it'll attempt to connect to the server, right? Because that's all this is going to do. That's going to create a new client peer at that address, and it's going to connect to it. So at this point, we should be connected to a server. We should be connected to the server from the client, right? Because it's creating a client peer. So let's print that out because we want to have a good foundation of where we're at. And I'm hesitant to log the IP import on the client, so I'm going to hold off. But for development, yeah, I think in testing that's fine. But maybe not do that if you ship your game. Okay, so then at this point, this is kind of where I'm not 100% sure what to do because we're connected. We have a lobby created in theory, right? We've created a lobby in theory, and then we waited for the server to send us a ticket back on to tell us where to connect to the backend server. And then Post game, join game. I didn't really do anything. I just showed the lobby. So when was hide lobby called? How was I doing that? Sorry, I'm trying to remember what I. So if you hit join game, it changes the scene to the game scene, which is here. Or no, it does this first, shows the loading screen, and then I would just switch to the game scene, which we need to do at this point, or we need to do it once it's ready. So I don't think that's here. So we need like a callback so that we can move them to the game scene. I'm doing it already here, and I think we should hesitate on this. So that's one thing that we need to figure out. We still need to figure out if our server is okay to change when the match is ready. I'm still concerned about that order of operations. But let's go back to the docs really quick. Okay. So where's the callbacks for when we know to do this? Because once we save that it's sealed, there needs to be like one more thing that, or maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking about this wrong. Maybe does this happen at the end? Like, what's the order of operations here? Like, I'm failing to see that. Do I sit and am I supposed to just see the players come in and then I seal the lobby after enough players have joined? Yeah, okay. So then they hit start and then it probably seals the match. Okay. So they do require, they are developing this or presenting it in a way that the owner of the match will start it. And that's fine if that's the type of game, but you could also obfuscate that and just do that behind the scenes. But the only player that's going to be able to do it is if the guy that created the lobby is still there, unless because there's like an edge case where if the guy that created the lobby leaves, does that destroy the lobby or does the ownership get transferred? You know what I mean? This is like okay. So and maybe there's a different approach too. Maybe this is just like their getting started approach, but maybe there is another approach that's what I'm more familiar with, which is the players don't govern lobbies. The server governs it. You just say, I want to play a match. Here's the type of match I want to play. And the server's like, here's a match or whatever, or it creates the lobby for you. And then once there's enough players, the server detects that and then sends a message that's like, start the game. And this is sort of not letting, this is a sort of a different path with forcing the lobby owner to do that. And again, I haven't really looked into this. So we'll see. We'll learn as we go. Then we synchronize lobby. Once the lobby synchronize, I guess I need to add this to this should also be added because this is only going to happen if like the game crashes or something, or if you click it. So this actually isn't going to get hit. So I need to add on player leave. So I'm going to put that up here so I don't forget. So on for this demo. Yeah. So what we need to do is when the first player leaves, because we're just experimenting with one player for today, hopefully. And what that just means is when a player leaves, let's just kill the server because there's no point in letting it run there. I don't, so we don't have to manually kill it. So I'm gonna have to figure that out too in a second. So yeah, okay. So I guess they are using an RPC to signal to start the game, which works for us, but we're using a spawner. Yeah, I guess that could work. All right, so when our server is ready, on match ready happens, does match ready, I need like a life cycle diagram. I think that's what this is missing. I need a life cycle diagram of what is supposed to happen here. I think I understand what this is doing now. And I think maybe we should just run it and then I might be able to have a better idea. So I don't think I added this to the game. Okay, I'm going to just drop it in here, the seal lobby. This is just their note. I'm going to put a print statement. And then I think this is when we should start the game. I would assume that we're going to get a callback from the server that's like, you're ready. Yeah, right here. Okay. So maybe they want us to call back through like some RPC to tell everybody to join the game. All right, I just put that together. I think that's the way to do it. Let me go through this, and then I can walk everybody else through it once I think I have it ready. But I think I'm going to need to create another button. So when we join as a client, right now, just run it. Make sure it doesn't break. I'm going to hit join game, and it's going to hit join game, and then it's going to go into join game, and it's going to show a loading screen. And then create lobby is going to do some magic. I think when we get here, I want to show a button. I want to show another button, start game. So let's go to the main menu scene, and we're going to add another button because I think this can work. So let's just add a button. We'll duplicate that, and we're going to call it start match. And I think this might work. We're going to say start match. And I'm going to try to move it right over here. And we're going to hide it by default. And we're going to put it down here. And it's going to call seal lobby in our network manager. So we're not going to leave the main menu seat on the client. Print start match, so we have an idea where we're at, and then let's wire it up while I'm in there. Start match. Okay, so we have a start match button that is off by default that we will, I'm going to turn it back on because I'm going to be under a different area. Okay, well, it's going to stay on until for now because this is a rough example. So it's just gonna, so you don't push that when the game loads. Okay. All right. So don't hit start match until you see lobby created waiting for tickets, or actually until you see client connected to server, right? It should. Okay. I think all the work, I think there's going to be a little bit more server side work. Okay. So when it runs on the server, it's going to go to setup game, and we set up our server, and then I think it's going to just wait for the client to seal it. So the client will create a loading screen and then create a lobby, and it's going to seal it. And then I think at this point, we're going to need an RPC call that hides the loading screen and loads the game scene. Or do we need to go to the game scene first? You know what I mean? Like I'm struggling to see the order here. I think we can change the game scene earlier. I don't think we need to do this here. I think we can change the game scene. And I think in here we need to make an RPC call, maybe. So once it's sealed, we get on match ready, and then we can send an RPC back to the clients that are like load the game scene. I think that's what we have to do. Let's just say start match on client.rpc, and let's just create that and hope that that's what we're supposed to do. And then what that's going to do is load the game scene, which is whatever we were doing here. And then once the game is loaded, I just realized the order of this all depends on when I add a player. So what happens in my game is I have this thing called multiplayer manager, and it is not loaded because this game scene isn't loaded, right? We're in the main menu and we're doing all this stuff. We're talking to the network manager, and this is on the client side, right? We join game, right? And this is client side. We go to our network manager, and the network manager is just going to be sitting at the top, probably above this main menu because it's on an autoloader. And we show this loading scene for a minute. We create a lobby, and we're waiting on a ticket, and we're still not in the game scene, right? However, when we click seal lobby, when we click our button, our start match button, we're going to hit seal lobby. That behind the scenes will make a call back to W4 server. And then it's going to say on match ready. Then we make an RPC call to all the clients. Start match on client. And then I forgot to do RPC authority because we only want the server to call that. And then every client will have this called, and every client will switch to the game scene. And then every client will call this ready function, and it will call to hide the loading screen. Okay, so this is the problem. The way that I do this, players already going to be connected to the game. So we can't do it off a connected signal anymore. So these are going to run prematurely. We're connecting really early. We're connecting once we get a ticket. We're just going to be connected to the game, basically, I guess. We don't want to add the player right there. We want to add the player up here. And that's why we have our players here. That's why we get players. That's the whole point of this. Okay. Cool. Okay, so that's going to be a bit of a refactor-ish. What do we need in here? We've got our multiplayer scene. We're tracking players in the game. So I guess to make it easier, I think what I can do is we're on the server and we're in the game scene, meaning we have access to this class now. So instead of doing it on connected, and again, this is just me trying to get this working for fun. We're gonna say, let's get the players, but then we're gonna do I think I want to get access to the multiplayer manager node because the match is ready. We're in the game. So let's do get tree. Should be MUL. Should be multiplayer manager. And then I want to do, again, this isn't necessarily how we're going to do it. It's just for trying to get it up and running. We're going to run this client connected. We're going to hardwire it. And I need to pass in the network ID. Okay, so that's where this players comes in. So we're going to have a list of players, and for every player, we need to call client connected on it. So we're gonna need to loop over the player. So let's see how to do that. Well, we can just try it out. I don't know what this is going to return. It might turn list of user IDs. It's hard to say. All right. Well, this is like one of those times where we're gonna have to print it out and see what we got. We got our multiplayer manager. And where was that? We'll just copy this and be lazy, and we'll just assume that players is just IDs. Okay, the problem is we need the network ID, right? We need network IDs. So this should say network ID. And once we have network ID, then we can call connect client. Okay, so connected client is not going to be called now on the server. It's going to wait. And then I'm going to pass in a network ID, and then add player is going to get called. And then we're going to add player to the multiplayer scene. It's going to instantiate it, add it to the game server on the server. And then I think we're good. And then when a client disconnects here, I'm going to put a note here that says refactor the shutdown call to a better spot, even though that might be a totally fine spot. Well, no, it's fine because we're just playing around with, but you're going to want to handle that in a way that's like have all players left. Whoops. Have all players left. Shut down match, or is have all players left, or is game over? Shut down match. Okay, for now, whatever. We're just gonna leave it at that, and that's on client disconnect, which is gonna be one person. I don't know if this is gonna work. We'll see. We're just playing around with it right now. Okay, so we've got a RPC call on match ready. We grab our multiplayer manager, Hopefully it should be there, because we went to the game scene early on, and I almost don't want to set this ready until the game. There's a slight chance this could cause a race condition. There's like a really slight chance. I don't think it will. I think we'll be fine. But let's just move on. And there's a chance that this is also going to break on the server. I think we may be ready for a test. Join game. It's going to join game. And then once we see join game is going to create a lobby, and it's going to get a ticket. And then when we get a ticket, it connects. I'm assuming this is correct. Like it authenticates us, and then we and then I just create the server, and we connect to the server and port, and now we're connected. And then I'm going to hit start server. It's client connected to server. Hit start match. I'm reminding myself what to do, right? Hit start match, and then that'll call start match here, which calls seal lobby here. Then back on the server side, it's going to say, hey, the match is ready. I'm guessing it's going to say that. I think based on what we read. And then it's going to try to add them to the game. And in theory, this should add all the players to the game. And then we're going to say start match, which makes a call back to all of our clients that are connected. And we'll change the clients to the game scene. And since we changed the game scene, it should synchronize the players spawning automatically once it loads in. It should do that. Like I don't think I need to have the game scene already loaded on the client. There's a slight chance this also causes an issue. Hold on, where do we remove the lobby normally for our normal? Let me check. So we hide when the multiplayer manager is loaded in, which means that it's expecting. We need to actually do hosting is true. We need to do that because these callbacks still need to be hit. This will be ignored, but this still needs to be hit. I'm pretty sure this will be ignored. Let's make sure it is ignored. Yeah, let's make sure, because I want to make sure that that's okay. So the game scene locally, when you start the client on the main menu, normally we load the main scene right away. So maybe that scene needs to be there. I don't know. It might not be. Let's just try it. Okay, so let's do a build. Let's see if we can get something up and running. So let's make a dedicated server build. It looks like it's nothing special. So export. I'm gonna make a new one and call it W4. And we're gonna go over to resources, and we're gonna select dedicated server. And I'm gonna select a different tab so it doesn't explode everywhere. And let's just export project. I have a Linux distribution folder, and we're gonna just overwrite whatever's in there so quick. And I'm not going to use the built-in uploader because I'm not logged in. So I go to builds. We might have to create a profile. Let's go to builds, create a new build, and we'll call it test1. Let's name it test1, and I'm going to select a file. Let's make another build. So I think here, let's change the name to server, because whatever that long name was is not good, because then it makes your job harder when you're trying to debug on the server. Okay, so we've got a thing. So I'm gonna select it and hit select and save changes. Test1. I don't have any properties I need to provide. Properties is like match type and stuff. I'm guessing you can add stuff to it. Okay, so we have a build, and can we create a fleet without a cluster? No cluster is available. All right, so this might take time. Oh, well, we can probably just say, I'm going to say fleet 1. What was the port? I don't think it matters. No, just do one server. Is it gonna, yeah, how do I create a cluster then if there's no cluster? Okay, I'm a little stuck here. So on the previous stream, we we're unable to see the W4 deployment from end to end because we got all the code working for it here in our template 3D template project, and I think I have most of it there. This is like where we need to do a test where I have like the server code running, or the server code installed, and I believe ready to communicate with the W4 services. When I went to deploy it, I guess you have to go down to this configuration. Here's our build, and clusters did not exist, and that was my bad. When I signed up, I reached out to their support team, and they got back to me and said that I had not selected clusters. So if you do get invited, or if you request to use W4 and you want to use a dedicated server, make sure that you select that you want a cluster. And right now, I believe they're only supporting EU. Again, this is a beta product, and I just want to really emphasize that this is beta. There's going to be bugs. There's known issues, gaps in the documentation. So I just want to make sure we set our expectations for this. But I want to show this off. And again, this is my first time using it, so I'm not 100% sure what we're going to run into, but I'm very familiar with this type of setup because it's very similar to GameLift and Unity, more closer to, I would say, Unity gaming services, but for Godot. So just keep everything that I've said in mind, and let's just get our expectations set. So if you do request a workspace, which allows you to host your games backend, if you want a dedicated server, make sure that you select the cluster that they have available. I think there's only one right now, but they will eventually roll out additional clusters. So this was not here in the previous stream or in the previous video. So we do have a cluster now. So I think what we can do at that point is create a fleet. And I just want to touch base with the documentation first, so that I wanted to follow along the documentation. So I just want to, let's go back to that. So we're at the create fleet part in the documentation here. And this is pretty straightforward. I covered this in the previous stream. Setting the port and everything is pretty straightforward. I don't think I think I just set it to whatever the default 4.3, or maybe I'm using 8080. Let me check. And again, this code is just for a proof of concept. I'm not going to push out this code in this capacity. It will need to be refactored and cleaned up because I'm just trying to get that test working. And then once we know it's working, then I'll go back and do it in a more cleaner fashion, more best practice fashion. Trying to find the so it's going to be where I connect. Oh yeah, we get the server IP import from the ticket. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, I guess I went ahead. There's really nothing to it. I'm just going to create a fleet, and you can add labels and stuff to fleets that really just help you, as like if you have different game modes. Like they have like a battle royale, or maybe like capture the flag or something like that. You could add that. And I don't want to get into the weeds on that right now. So just be aware. If you are an experienced developer, you would be aware of those things. So let's say fleet 1. I'm just going to call it fleet 1. And we've got our cluster. So this is in the EU. So there might be a bit of lag as I'm not in the EU. And this is our port, and let's just spin up one servers. I don't want to automatically scale right now. That's not what this test is for. This is just let's get through it. Let's just see if we can do this end-to-end test here. So fleet successfully created. We got that notification. We do have a fleet now. That's kind of a neat little indicator there of the status. It says starting. So we're in the starting phase. Okay, so in the overview, I clicked on the overview over here. I've got a fleet 1 that was not there before, and it says 1 game server is running. I really doubt that the server is running that quickly. Okay, and this is new. This wasn't here before, and the status says scheduled. I'm guessing that they will spin it up, and it looks like they're using an AWS EC2 instance behind the scenes, because that's pretty common for that. That's fine. Those EC2 instances spin up pretty quickly. I've got a lot of experience. If you watch any of my past videos, even the previous, not this last stream, but the previous video I did, I deployed out to AWS, and if you have maybe a cluster of EC2 instances, or if you're just testing a dedicated server and you just have it created, but you have it shut down because you don't want to obviously accumulate charges when you're not using it, and you need to just spin it back up, it's very fast. It's like sub 60 seconds to get those instances back up. At least the T2 micros. I'm not sure about the larger ones because I haven't played with those recently. I don't know if I need a matchmaker profile. So we might get into this and we might get an error that says, hey, we've got a problem. You need a matchmaker profile or something. But we'll see. It says ready now. Okay, so it went from starting to ready, and we got a solid line here. Occupancy rate, maybe that means like if we have a game server on there already. And does this during the fleet creation? I did select the build. Okay, so it should be ready to go. Don't know if I'm not 100% sure. So I have a fleet, and now the fleet has been started. I think it should be ready to deploy our backend to, like, to deploy, and I should say not deploy, but to actually run our build, because the build is on there. I just don't think it's running right now because there's no game, right? If you don't have a game running, then it's not going to run. So I mean that maybe that doesn't make sense. I think it just means that it's actually running. Yeah, game server count. It is running, so it's ready, but we're not actually doing anything. Maybe that's what that means. Let's just try to run it and see what happens. And we're not connecting to it using this client peer that I've had, and it's just going to pass in the server IP and the server port. And there's a couple things that's going to happen ahead of time. So what I have to do here is in our main menu, let's just run it. I think I only need to run one instance for now. If I hit join game, it'll come in here and it'll go to join game, and it should create lobby. So we should see some debugging down here, and let's see what happens. Create lobby, error, permission denied, function create lobby, lobby create, sorry. Okay, so right off the bat, we're already running into a permission problem. That's unfortunate. Let me see. So I think what I want to do next, though, is we need to figure out why we don't have permission to create lobby. All authentication methods require an ID and a password. You can provide one manually with login device method. Login auto wraps it by generating a unique ID and user key. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we need to run this login stuff. So, because it says you'll see this pattern often in communicating with W4. So okay, now that I'm thinking this through and reading this, it makes a lot of sense to have the client, right? The client code calling the W4. They're not just going to let unauthenticated calls. I think I was assuming something that wasn't there, right? So you have to give permissions to your client through some kind of anonymous authentication. Like if you look back at my older videos that I had done using Unity, or using Unity and connecting to AWS, you always had to you had the AWS SDK, and you logged in with anonymous credentials so that you can make requests to get whatever. Maybe I was getting lobby, or I don't remember what I was getting back then, but it would allow you to hit those APIs with from the client. And right now that's what we're trying to do here, and it's absolutely giving us a permission denied. So I like right here. So yeah, I really think we do need to have that login thing working. And so let's try to do this. And I think what this is doing behind the scenes is they're sending a request to the W4 services, and W4 is returning a set of temporary credentials behind the scenes. So that means like you don't have to have user accounts for your players. You can do that, right? They want you to be able to have access for that, because that would be like the next step to be able to track things. So I'm guessing this is a temporary set of credentials that authorizes you to call to W4 APIs, like getting the matchmaker cluster list. Because right now it's getting an error permission denied. So so that's very likely this line of code is getting permission denied. And this line of code may also get that if we were, looking at the result of the errors. So we're just not looking at the result of this request. So I'm assuming that would also provide that same permission denied. So I think what we can do is let's try to run this login stuff. And then we'll do this login here first. So when we show loading screen, let's pull down that, let's copy paste that login code. And we're going to create a couple variables. These guys. We're just going to straight up blindly follow the docs for now. And now we should see those errors go away. And then we will do a call to that. So I think we can just do like async login, right? Or I'm sorry, await. All right. So I think we need to test this and see if we can get logged in. So I'm gonna click join game. And it does look like it's trying to log in. Oh, look, it got it this time. Lobby created, waiting on lobby ticket. Look at that. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't know I needed to do that. Lobby, where's lobby created? Waiting. Oh, I'm hovering over it right here. So this is where we're at. And I think we need to wait on this. On receive server ticket. So we're not getting our callback yet. So that sounds like a bug, or not a bug, but like a missing, something that we're missing. Let's check the logs. Yeah, we're definitely not connected to the server yet, which that's expected. I didn't expect to be connected. Let's check out. Oh, we got a lobby. Okay. But it's not giving us our ticket back. Game server not yet allocated. We got a player, anon. Okay. What's that? Okay, so there's like an anonymous user here. That's cool. Let's go back. Okay, this makes a lot more sense now that I'm seeing this. Okay, so 1 out of 2 players. We've got a ID there. Let's check back. Waiting on lobby ticket. Okay, so on receive, we're not getting the lobby ticket, receive server ticket, right? So we're not getting that. Yeah, so what happens is when you join the lobby and the match is ready, it'll send a request back. So if I'm the creator of the lobby, I should be automatically in it, and then it should let me just play the game, play the match. And I don't see anything about minimum in here. So so this is getting the list of clusters. Let's interact. Okay, so it looks like you can actually connect. So is that what I'm missing? Because do I have to? Okay. So I think this is okay. So I think maybe this is what I'm missing. I need to create the lobby, and then I need to subscribe to it. And then once I'm subscribed, then I can probably get this receive server ticket. So creating a lobby, and then we got our lobby result. And then we need to subscribe. I don't know. I mean, this could be out of date. Yeah. Okay, so that's not a thing. It should be underscore lobby. All right, so maybe what we do is we subscribe to events and then we connect to receive them, or we should probably do them in the reverse order. We should probably subscribe after we connect in case we get it like immediate and there's like a weird race condition. Right? I think that makes sense. Assuming that this works, I think we'll get a message back, or maybe we'll still have to do the seal property thing. The seal lobby thing. the lobby system will send out a notification when it's ready, and then we will connect to the server once this is received. So what triggers that? What triggers this call here to what triggers this received server ticket? That's what I want to know. Ah, yes. You do have to. Okay, there's the there it is right there. This is telling me that you have to seal the lobby for it to be created. So let's seal the lobby. Lobby's been sealed. But we're not getting the connection. We're not getting the ticket. I mean, the lobby's been sealed. But maybe that call is broken because the state is still new. It's not sealed. Okay, so I think we have another problem, guys. Okay. So I think our call to seal the game is broke. I don't think this is working. Yeah, right here. So this is the code that we need. Lobby. So we don't check if the lobby is. Let me just copy really quick. So this is what we currently have. Let's just blow this away and just use the other examples code. And we gotta correct the lobby typo a couple places. Await lobby save. Await lobby save. Await lobby save. They're not calling. We didn't call async before, so I think we were calling it. Maybe. All right, let's run it again. And let's go over to our dashboard. Okay, let's live, and then we can join game. Of course, we're going to update the UI to have more responsive information, and then let's try to seal it. Okay, it did work. It did work. And ignore that comment though, because I didn't know about that. Okay, so it did work, and I believe we're connected to the game. Change state to allocated. Something happened on the server. Okay, so I think we made progress. Let's check the status of. I mean, something else is broke, but wait, what's that? What is happening? So it's spinning up a new fleet or something? Oh, hold on. Oh, wait. Look at this. We've got to change state to ready. Done. This is the current one. So something happened. So we did something. I don't know what just happened. I don't know where we ended up in the life cycle of it, but I mean, that's better than what we had before. So we had this thing here said change to allocated, and then unable to start match, 0 players connected, 1 minimum required. And then it killed it. I bet you it killed it. And then that's why it's maybe done. Change state to shutdown. Okay. All right. So okay. So I think that's better. I think that we saw some changes. So I don't know what this is, this guy here. I realized that there was something that I may have failed to set up in the fleet configuration. And it was a pretty big oversight. And what it was this port right here. So I just put in some arbitrary port. I didn't think anything of it. However, when you start a server, you actually start it on a specific port. And I just completely passed on that and put in some random port over there that was not correct. So whatever you launch your eNet server as, whatever port that is, which in this case is just 8080, that will need to map to whatever you put here. I can't look at this fleet, so let's just look at setting a new one up. Let's call it fleet 3. Let's do F3. No, F. I think I like lowercase f. It's easy to work with. And this looks like Times New Roman. What's interesting. And then let's do our cluster and then our build. I'm going to abandon the test one nomenclature in favor of B
for build. And then that was our first build. And our port 8080 needs to match this port that we launch our eNet server on. So that's what that is going to be. And let's go ahead and save changes. So the fleet is in startup, and as you can see here, it indicates that it's starting. So that's good. Let's check our game servers. Yep. So we've got our fleet number 3 up and running. 548 is matches what I would expect. And you can see that these print statements right here, and I believe these two are actually from my server build. So I know that my server build has been correctly installed, and we looked at that earlier on how to set that up. So let's check. Okay, so we have our game server. Let's double check the fleet and make sure that is in a ready state. Okay, so at this point, our fleet's ready. Even though if you're seeing a game server and this doesn't say ready, like if this is still in startup, I would hold off on anything until this says ready. And you can see our port down there is 8080. Now, that's not the port that we're going to connect to from our clients. So this is just, I think, where the fleet is looking at the running executable on that instance of the server. So it's going to run on a port 80. It's opening up like a network socket, a network socket on port 80, and they must have some type of forwarding mechanism happening because the actual port that we connect to is this EC2 instance here with this port. So these are going to be passed in through a matchmaker ticket. And so now that we've correctly configured the fleet to the correct port, if we head on over to our game, let's clear out our logs and let's do a quick test to see if that's going to work. And that DNS right here and port will be passed into this create client peer from the server ticket, which is not in here. If you go down into my network manager is where I'm doing most of this code. The server ticket will get passed in through this signal executed, and then we pass in the IP and port from that server ticket. All right. So, yep. So let's just run a quick test. And so what I have to do, I don't have any of the lobbies set up right now, remember, so it's not going to show us any users or anything. So I'm going to hit join game. And this is where you would show, a lobby or whatever, or maybe you could say create lobby, but I'm just leveraging existing buttons and code to work for this example. So bear with me on that for this. And you can see down here, lobby created, hit start match to seal and get server ticket. So if you don't recall earlier, a seal just means that you're making the lobby, you're closing the lobby and you're readying it for the match to start. And so you're going to hit seal lobby. This code's going to get hit. We're going to save that lobby change. And then if everything went correctly, this signal, this on receive server ticket signal that we established earlier with our lobby will execute here, and then we should be able to connect to that game. Now, I know that this should work, and I think there's still a bug. Like I have a bug in my setup because this is the first time we've tested it. So let's just, prepare yourself to see a somewhat working walkthrough, and let's just hit start match, and we can put live. And yeah, you could see that this is much farther than we were yesterday. I don't really know where to put this window. This node not found was something that I wasn't able to test. And of course it didn't work. But what it does show us here is that we actually successfully connected to that server. That 0 right there is a print statement to make sure that we don't have any errors. So we know we successfully connected, and we know that also because it says match ready. 1 out of 1, I don't know why it's 1 out of 1, whatever, are connected. Maybe that means that how many people were in your lobby. So I had 1 person in my lobby and 1 of those players were connected. So 1 of 1 were connected on match ready, and some random garbage that I printed out on accident. And then no not found. Well, this is where we need to investigate. This is where I broke something. So I'm guessing it's going to be near this network manager 42. So this is going to be the server side. Right. So right here, this did not work. Okay, so my call to get the multiplayer manager node did not work. So let's just go ahead and stop that. And I want to think about it for a minute. Client disconnected. Oh, you know what? Let me just double check something. So this client disconnected. I think I went ahead and added that when a player disconnects, we'll shut the game down. So shutting down server, does that show up? Yeah, right here. Shutting down server is hit when a client disconnected. You're not going to want to do that. You're only going to want to do that if all players left or in a game over state. Then you shut down. You tell the W4 server instance, hey, we don't need you running anymore. So that's where you would appropriately put that. But in this case, because I know I'm just going to join one player at a time right now for this testing, or I'm just going to join as one player, I can safely say that when I leave, shut the server down. So I just want that life cycle to flow properly. So that's what that is. And we can see that being called right there. So that's great because it also says change state to shutdown. And this is part of the W4 server life cycle. Again, I don't know what this permissions operation not found. Maybe I'll ping the folks over at W4 Games and see if they have a idea what that is. So, all right, let's try to fix what's happening so that we can actually get into the game and play the game and see a player synchronized. And then we'll have to set up the join game side where we actually join a lobby and get the list of lobbies and all that. Okay. So I was just poking around and I think, so this is where the exception was being thrown. It was unable to find this. I could have been getting referencing the tree incorrectly. I've used this get tree, get current scene, get node successfully before. So I believe that this should be a more correct way to try and retrieve the multiplayer manager, which is here from the current game scene. All right, I knew this was going to happen. So earlier in the stream, when I was developing out this section, I said that I wasn't sure what this player object was going to have, and I'm still not sure what it is. And I'm trying to print it out, and it's just an object now. So I need to get the makeup of this object so that I can get the network ID out of it, and then set up these client connected callbacks with it. Or I'm sorry, just call to set up the client. And now I need to figure out the best way to do that. So how do I know what this returns? Like I can't actually click on it. And this is just like a wrapper to the SDK. So I can't really hook into it. Player ID and peer ID. So this is probably not what we want. I'm guessing it's the peer ID. Yeah, I think that's the network ID. And this is going to be who they are in the database. So I think I want to call get peer ID. So what we can do is test it. We'll say players, that's an array. So we don't need to get that anymore. That was just like a failed attempt or a desperate attempt at trying to collect more information. So let's try getting, so this is going to be for each player. Let's do player. And then we'll say var network ID equals player dot get peer ID. So now we should be able to see that. I'm assuming that's what this is. This W4 player. I'm assuming that that's what type of object. So this is like, accessing a get players object. It would be really cool to know that. I hate guessing like that. What's the player object return type? Array of what? Give me a type. Okay, so I don't know. I guess we can just try it. All right, so let's just run it through. Let's turn on live logs so we can see our refresh. Press match to seal. That's what we expect. I just thought that there would be a little bit more logs in here. Oh, that's a good sign. I was looking for that earlier, and I guess I didn't have that version. And it's just good to see it there. And let's start match. Yeah, okay. So that's everything from here up is what we see. So it actually bumped us out. Okay, so let me check the server code. So wherever this happened, player ID is right here. So that looks like a peer ID to me. And what that was doing When I call this multiplayer manager client connected, that is just I'm just leveraging an existing method that I had already had to add the player to the game. So there should be a player in the game. Let's check the remote tab. Yeah, a player did not get loaded. So adding player to game. Why? There's a chance that this tried to load the player before the player was on the correct scene. So where do we connect? We connect here. This is when we receive a ticket. And then we actually connect. And this is client side. And right here, we need to load gameplay scene. So whatever I was trying to do here, let's just undo all that. Let's copy this. Blow this away. Man. Okay. And then this is, as soon as we connect, we immediately want to go to the gameplay scene. Because then on the server, the server is going to say, oh, the match is ready. I'm actually really concerned that this is still going to get called before. Can I actually see that here? On match ready. And then it gives me client connected. That's not good. So I need to maybe change the order on the server to a different time. Okay, so we're connected. We're connected, and then it goes to on match ready. So yeah, I think we're okay because we connect and then we immediately switch over to the gameplay scene. And then by the time it tries to do this, it should be there. Let me just do another build. All right, so it's ready. Join game. So I guess there's nothing involved with this side of it. So let me just stick here. Okay, so yeah, we immediately, as soon as we connect, I guess that's the correct way. I mean, of course, I'm going to refactor this to be a little cleaner. But what I'm doing here is when that server tells us, "Hey, you're good to go. Here's your ticket. Start connecting to me." We need to switch over to our game scene to start the match. And then you could just in your game scene here, I could just have like a temporary UI, covered that just says loading, and then I think we could have like another RPC call that's like, all right, everybody's been added ready. And because the player will get added on the server side. And then when they're added, they will show up locally. But when they show up, there's always like a couple jitters or something. Like when they're like, you saw the guy, you can see down in my logs here, he's like trying to find the idle state on the ground, and it took him a second to like synchronize, which is fine, but you could hide all that, and then just by the time that player loads from the multiplayer spawner, you can then shoot an RPC at the end of that at the end of adding him to the game on the server side, and then to your clients, and then he'll be able to load. So here this is working. This is my first look at a successfully deployed backend server to W4 Games, currently in beta. And I have a client connected to that server through their lobby and ticketing system. Now, I don't think I'm using matchmaking, even though I have a matchmaker profile. I don't think I'm actually using it. I want to delete it to see if that was actually part of the process, because it wasn't terribly clear. I cannot actually join with another player right now because I don't have that code in there that's going to give me the list of lobbies and stuff. So that would be the next step here. So I think we've got our first happy path through with W4 Games, which is in beta. So just so everybody knows this, there's still a lot of incomplete things, some, improvements to be made, gaps in the documentation, and I'm going to try to help out and maybe make a more formal. I know I streamed this process to just get a dedicated server on there, but it's not helpful, right? It's just for me basically. And I figured might as well just kind of show you guys what this is going to look like. This is like by request only to get access to W4. So you can request access if you want a dedicated server build. When you're requesting access, just make sure to select a available cluster. I think they only have the EUs available right now, which is fine. So it looks like we didn't need a matchmaker profile, like I set up earlier. So that's an interesting note there. I think this is really fun. This is actually really great. I'm really excited that Godot is going to have this, right? It's a Godot first class citizen, all-inclusive, hosting, dedicated server hosting with lobbies, matchmaker tools, clustering capabilities. It's got some database functionality. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to create probably going to clone this project out and maybe walk through all this stuff in a separate build. That way that everybody that wants to know how to do this can have a working project that they know will work. This like a 3D multiplayer template I've been working on. And then I'm going to add a lobby scene to it so we can actually see who's connected in your lobby. And then we can grow that template so that everybody can have access to it. And then if we really want to get excited or really want to get it, I know a lot of people have been asking for P2P stuff. And we can look at using W4 for P2P and lobbies and that sort of thing. And maybe I'll get to that if I can. There's a lot on my plate right now, and I really want to get to all of this stuff. And there's other services I want to use. GD Sync is another one. That's a P2P heavy one. And there's a couple other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm really excited for W4. And I think that once this gets out of beta, that's really going to help a lot of people with their multiplayer games. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.